Hey guys, welcome to the first content video for year one. All right, we're in unit one, which are going to be the causes of the First World War. Okay, let's just get into it. Unit 1.1 is going to be the long-term causes of the First World War. World War I is a super interesting yet very easy topic to study, and it's a really good introduction to this course because it has a kind of logical breakdown. The long-term causes and then the short-term causes, and that's exactly how we're going to look at this conflict. Okay. This cartoon we're going to come back to towards the end, and it'll make a little bit more sense. Okay, so the long-term causes of World War I is something that can be traced back very, very, very far, which is why they're called the long-term causes. All right, a lot of them go back into the 19th century, right? This course is focusing on 20th century world history. Year one is essentially going to be the first 50 years of the 20th century. Year two is the second 50 years of the 20th century. But to understand the long-term causes, we do have to make some mention to the 19th century. So when we talk about long-term, it goes very far back. Short-term is essentially between the years 1910 and 1914. Okay? There is an acronym to remember the long-term causes of World War I. Okay? This is an acronym that I'll make reference to for the full 2 years of this course, and it's called MANIA. Each letter in the word MANIA is going to stand for another long-term cause of World War I. Let's see. All right. The sides. Let's just break this down quick. You guys are doing an activity on this, on kind of like a country profile. I'm not going to read each one of these things. I just want to make mention of this and kind of highlight this right here. All right, this word tension. Tension is almost like anger, right? It's this level of frustration that goes on. And one of the things about World War I is that each of the actions made tension levels in Europe rise. All right, so let's think of tension as a balloon, right? I don't have a balloon with me, but let's just pretend I did. If you have a balloon and you're filling it with air, right, with each pump of air into that balloon, it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, right? That's how balloons work. What happens when you overinflate a balloon? What will eventually happen, right? It will pop. All right, and that's kind of what tension did to Europe. All right, with each of the events that we're going to talk about, air got pushed into that balloon and pushed into that balloon and got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Eventually, the tension overtook and we exploded into World War I. And that's what these causes are going to do and kind of how you can keep track of them. All right. You guys can look at this slide on your own and make sense of it as much as you possibly can. All right, the first long-term cause, the first M in MANIA is going to stand for militarism. All right, one very, very important thing that I want you to note about this class is when I ask you to define a word or when I ask you to understand the definition of a word, I want you to come up with your own definition. All right, the worst thing in the world that you can do when you're learning a word is go to dictionary.com or just use Google and Wikipedia and copy and paste a definition. You're not going to remember that definition at all. I want you to come up with definitions in your own words. That's going to tell me that you really understand what that word means, right? So militarism, these are my definitions. These are not dictionary.com definitions. Militarism, when a country increases the size and firepower of its military or navy, okay? So militarism is going to be one of the long-term causes of World War I. All right. What we see is if country A and country B are right next to each other, right, and they're not really the greatest of friends. If country A increases the size of its military, what is that then going to cause country B to do? Increase the size of its military. All right. So you can see that militarism has a direct relationship about tension, right? The higher military numbers a country gets, the more tension exists between country A and country B, right? That's pretty easy, right, to understand the definition of that. One thing you need to know in IB history is the difference between kind of just making a statement and then backing it up with evidence. So these are going to be specific examples of militarism throughout Europe. in the all the way back from the 1800s, but really focusing on the 1900s. Okay, one is the German naval laws. Okay, this is going to allow for 73% increase in military spending between 1910 and 1914. That is evidence that militarism existed in Europe in these years. We have tangible proof that that was the case, right? Russia has a standing army of about 5 million prior to 1910. By 1914, they're over 12 million. That's an increase in military forces. That is militarism, right? We have proof. Germany increased its military from 4.5 to 11 million in that same span. We have proof. Another one, and this is going to be very special, which is why I highlighted in red. And you guys are going to do an activity with this very soon. But in 1906, England unveiled the Dreadnought, right? The Dreadnought is going to be the biggest, most advanced ship in the water at the time, right? When they unveiled the Dreadnought, every other country in the world goes, oh man, that's what we have to compete with, right? That unveiling of new technology is going to give a start to what we call the arms race, right? Because now we see what the competition looks like, and every other country has to do its best to match that. All right, and they're going to do their best to have scientists and factories work on producing as much military technology as possible. That, in turn, is going to increase tensions around the world. All right, that's why, if we go back to this slide right here, why it says by 1906 the race was on. Guess what year the Dreadnought was unveiled? 1906. So we have an arms race that starts in 1906, and we're going to see kind of the repercussions happen all the way up until 1914. Here is a photo of the Dreadnought, right? Doesn't look like much now, but this is over 100 years ago. At the time, this was the most dominant technology in the world when it came to naval technology, right? It was said that it was the most deadly fighting machine ever launched in the history of the world, right? So it does nothing but increase tensions and make war more inevitable, more possible, right? The A in Mania stands for, alliances, right? An alliance, very easy, a friendship between countries, right? So if I have to hold on. All right, I'm gonna draw for you guys quick. If I've got, right, boom, I'm such a good drawer. If I've got country A, country B, and country C. A, B, C. Right? Here we go. If country A and country C form an alliance with one another, but they don't form an alliance with country B feels left out. Country B feels like, all right, if they're going to form an alliance together, then I might have to seek country D over here so that I can even the odds. So the alliance, the idea of alliances increases a lot of tension throughout Europe, because when one country enters into an alliance, other countries feel like they too need to enter into an alliance. Well, wrong thing. All right. Now we have some examples of pre-World War I alliances. We've got the dual alliance, which is between Germany and Austria-Hungary. Now, if you don't remember the names on the left-hand side of the screen, right here, that's not the end of the world, as long as you remember these, right? You need to remember who is friends. You don't really need to remember the name of the friendship, right? We've got the Franco-Russian alliance, which should be pretty easy to remember, France and Russia, right? The Anglo-Russian alliance, anytime you hear Anglo, you should think England, so that's Britain and Russia. The Entente cordial, I think, like, Britain and France are kind of fancy. They have to have the fanciest of names for their alliance. That's the Entente cordial. Yesterday, in that kind of map activity that we did, it was called the Triple Entente, and it stems from Britain and France's original alliance. And then we've got the Balkan League, which are going to be a bunch of countries in the Balkans that band together and form an alliance with each other. This video is getting kind of long already, so I'm going to pause it here and pick back up with part 2 relatively soon. Be good.